Welcome to the Just Nuke It podcast. Are you ready for another apocalyptic probe?
Always ready for the end of the world. Well, at least to talk about it.
That's right. We are diving into some of the wildest end-of-the-world scenarios. This time we've got two tales of near misses from flash fiction, and let me tell you, they are packed with action and suspense.
Yeah. We've got two very different stories this time. One is set in Victorian London, Sherlock Holmes, that kind of thing, but with a twist, of course.
Oh yeah, very big twist. And the other one takes us deep into the jungle, but it's not a typical jungle adventure. We're talking about advanced technology and a fight for survival against some serious destructive forces.
Exactly. Two very distinct flavors of apocalypse to unpack today. I'm excited to see where these stories take us.
Okay, so let's jump right into our first flash fiction story, Holmes versus the Apocalypse.
Sounds intriguing.
Oh, it is. Right off the bat, the story drops us into Victorian London. You know, gas lamps, cobblestone streets, the whole 9 yards. But then things start to get really weird.
I bet. That's usually how these apocalyptic scenarios kick off. What kind of weird are we talking about here?
Well, we're talking gargoyle sightings, for one.
Gargoyles. Like coming to life.
Yep, apparently. And then there's a 5-headed hellhound running loose in Kensington.
Hold on. A 5-headed hellhound.
5 heads! You heard that right. And as if that wasn't enough, livestock are spontaneously combusting all over the place. It's like the rational world that Sherlock Holmes is so used to is suddenly being invaded by pure chaos.
It does sound like quite the challenge for the great detective. How does Holmes even begin to approach a case like this?
Well, you know Holmes. He sticks to his methods. He and Watson start investigating, looking for clues, using the deductive reasoning. But the evidence they're finding is anything but ordinary.
I can imagine. What kind of clues are we talking about?
We're talking ritualistic symbols, strange notes written in Sanskrit. It's like they're trying to solve a puzzle where they don't even understand the language.
A very cryptic puzzle indeed. Does this lead them anywhere?
It does. Their investigation leads them to this ancient cult called the Brotherhood of the Eternal Flame.
Oh, that sounds ominous.
It is. This cult has a prophecy about, you guessed it, a fiery cleansing of the world. And they seem to be the ones behind all these bizarre events.
I see. So we have the logical mind of Sherlock Holmes going up against an ancient prophecy of fiery destruction. That's an interesting clash of worldviews right there.
Right. It makes you wonder, how do you even fight something like that? How do you apply logic to something that seems so utterly irrational?
A good question indeed. One that I'm sure the story explores. So what happens next?
Well, the story kicks into high gear as Holmes and Watson embark on this globe-trotting adventure to stop the prophecy from coming true. They go from London to Istanbul, then all the way to Mongolia. It's like a Victorian-era action movie.
Wow, that does sound exciting. What are they searching for on this wild goose chase?
They're trying to track down these ancient artifacts that the Brotherhood has stolen. Apparently, these artifacts hold some kind of power, and the Brotherhood needs them to fulfill their prophecy. One of these artifacts is a jeweled amulet hidden in a crumbling tomb in Istanbul. There's a scene where they barely escape as the whole place collapses around them.
That's intense.
It is. And then they end up in Mongolia, where they meet a shaman who tells them about this legendary sky chariot hidden somewhere in the desert. It all feels very Indiana Jones, except with Sherlock Holmes instead.
So they're racing against time to collect these powerful artifacts before the Brotherhood can use them for their apocalyptic plans.
Exactly. But back in London, things are going from bad to worse. The Brotherhood is stepping up their activities, they're inciting riots, causing chaos, and London is teetering on the brink of total anarchy.
It seems like a classic case of exploiting fear and unrest to further their goals. It makes you wonder if that's how things would really play out in a real-world crisis.
Yeah, it's a sobering thought. Anyway, the story culminates in this epic showdown at the British Museum.
The British Museum. Interesting choice of location.
Right. I mean, you've got all these artifacts representing human history and knowledge, and then you have this ancient cult trying to bring about the end of the world.
Quite the juxtaposition. How does it all go down?
Well, the Brotherhood gathers in the museum with all these artifacts they've collected. Their leader makes this dramatic declaration that it's too late to stop the prophecy, and then this answering darkness appears in the sky.
Oh, wow. It sounds like the situation is escalating quickly.
It is. And to make matters worse, their regular weapons, their revolvers and such, are completely useless against this darkness. It's like fighting a shadow, something you can't even touch.
So they're facing an enemy they don't understand with weapons that are ineffective. That sounds pretty dire. What happens next? Does Holmes have a trick up his sleeve?
Of course he does. Even when facing complete annihilation, Holmes doesn't abandon logic. He notices something about the amulet, something about its energy and its connection to the darkness. He realizes that the key is polarity.
Polarity. What does that even mean in this context?
Well, he figures out that the amulet is acting like a conduit, drawing power from this other dimension, this darkness. So he uses his knowledge of science and maybe a little bit of intuition to reverse the flow of energy. He essentially turns the amulet into a weapon against the Brotherhood, severing their connection to the darkness. And just like that, the threat is neutralized.
Wow, that's incredible. So even in the face of the seemingly supernatural, logic and observation prevail. It's a testament to the power of the scientific method, even in the most extraordinary circumstances.
Absolutely. But the victory comes at a cost. Holmes is utterly exhausted, drained by the ordeal. He reflects on how close they came to total destruction and muses about the power of harnessed superstition. It's as if he's acknowledging that belief, even if it's not based in scientific fact, can have a real impact on the world.
It's a fascinating point. It suggests that even Holmes, with his staunch rationalism, recognizes that there are forces at play in the universe that might be beyond our current understanding.
Exactly. And the story ends with this image of London peacefully sleeping, completely unaware of the apocalypse it just narrowly avoided. It makes you think about all the things that might be happening behind the scenes, all the unseen forces that could be shaping our reality.
It's a chilling thought, but also strangely comforting. It suggests that even in the face of unimaginable threats, there might be those who are working tirelessly to protect us, even if we never know about it.
All right, so we've seen how logic and science saved the day in Victorian London. Now, let's shift gears and dive into our second flash fiction story, Jungle Code Broken. This one is a completely different kind of apocalypse.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of apocalypse are we talking about this time?
This one is all about the clash between nature and technology. The story opens with this vivid description of the jungle, this lush, vibrant ecosystem, but something is off. The animals are restless, sensing a new kind of danger.
What kind of danger?
It's not a predator, not a natural disaster. It's the arrival of humans, but not just any humans. These are humans with advanced technology, machines that are tearing through the jungle, disrupting the natural order.
I see. So it's less about ancient prophecies and shadowy creatures, and more about the very real threat of human encroachment and ecological devastation.
Exactly. The story really captures that sense of dread, of nature being violated by forces it can't comprehend. There's this one line that really stood out to me where Aquila, the leader of the wolf pack, says, "New death, not for food, but for change." It's chilling because it speaks to a kind of destruction that's not part of the natural cycle of life and death.
It highlights the idea that this isn't just about survival, it's about a fundamental shift in the balance of power. So how does the jungle respond to this threat?
Well, that's where Mowgli comes in, the boy raised by wolves.
Right, the classic jungle hero.
Exactly. Mowgli, being human himself, understands the threat these soft skins pose. He sees the destruction they're causing, and he feels responsible for protecting his jungle home.
It's an interesting position for him to be in, caught between two worlds. So what does he do?
He decides to infiltrate the human encampment to learn more about their plans and find a way to stop them. The wolf pack is hesitant at first. They're wary of the human world, but they recognize that Mowgli is their best hope.
It's a big risk for everyone involved.
It is. But Mowgli is determined. He sneaks into the encampment, and what he sees is like nothing he's ever encountered before.
What does he see?
He sees all these machines, these giant beetles tearing at the earth. He hears the roar of engines, the clang of metal. It's a sensory overload, completely alien to his jungle senses.
It's a stark contrast to the natural world he knows so well. Does he manage to gather any information?
He does. He overhears the humans talking about their plans. They're going to detonate some kind of explosive device to clear a huge area of the jungle. And they're not going to wait very long, just 3 sunrises.
That doesn't leave much time. So what can Mowgli do? He can't fight an army of humans with advanced technology?
No, he can't. But he knows the jungle better than anyone. He teams up with Baloo, the bear, and together they devise this plan to sabotage the humans' operation.
Sabotage? That sounds interesting. What kind of sabotage are we talking about?
Well, they use their knowledge of the jungle to their advantage. Vines are strategically tangled in gears. Wasp nests are placed in key locations. It's all about using nature itself as a weapon. And Mowgli, with his small size and agility, is able to sneak into places the humans can't reach, causing all sorts of mischief.
It's a clever strategy, using their understanding of the environment to disrupt the humans' technological advantage.
Yeah, it's like guerrilla warfare, jungle style, and it's surprisingly effective.
I bet the humans are getting pretty frustrated by this point.
Oh, they are. They have no idea what's hitting them. But then on the final night, Mowgli discovers the heart of the threat, the source of the planned detonation.
What is it? Some kind of doomsday device.
Not quite a doomsday device, but close. It's this cluster of boxes linked by strange wires. He realizes that this is what they need to disable to stop the detonation.
So what does he do? Does he try to dismantle it?
He thinks about that, but he realizes he doesn't have the time or the knowledge to figure out how these contraptions work, so he comes up with a much simpler, much bolder plan.
What's the plan?
He's going to use fire. He remembers watching the humans use fire, and he knows how powerful it can be. So he steals a flint and some tinder, and he sets the explosives ablaze.
Wow, talk about fighting fire with fire.
Right. It's a risky move, but it works. The resulting explosion is huge, causing chaos and confusion in the human camp. The humans, fearing for their lives, abandon their operation and flee.
So the jungle is saved. A victory for nature.
It is a victory, but it's a bittersweet one. As Mowgli watches the humans retreat, he realizes that they will probably be back. The threat hasn't been eliminated, just postponed.
It's a sobering reminder that the conflict between human progress and environmental preservation is far from over.
Yeah, and it leaves Mowgli with this sense of uncertainty about the future. He sees the destructive capacity of the humans, but he also recognizes that they're driven by their own needs, their own desire to survive and expand. It makes him question the nature of both humanity and the world itself.
It's a complex situation with no easy answers.
Definitely. The story ends with Mowgli returning to the jungle, listening to the sounds of nature slowly recovering, but knowing that the fight is far from over.
It's a powerful ending, full of both hope and apprehension. It makes you think about the delicate balance between humanity and the natural world, and the choices we make that will determine the fate of both.
So there you have it. Two very different apocalypse scenarios, two very different ways of facing the end of the world. What did you think? What stood out to you from these stories?
Well, I think it's fascinating how both stories highlight the importance of understanding the nature of the threat you're facing. In Holmes's case, it was about applying logic to a seemingly supernatural phenomenon, while Mowgli had to use his knowledge of the jungle to outsmart the humans' technology.
Yeah, it's like they both had to think outside the box, find unconventional solutions to unconventional problems.
Exactly. And I think there's a lesson in that for all of us. We live in a complex world with all sorts of potential threats. Some we can anticipate, some we can't. And it's important to be adaptable, to be willing to learn, and to approach problems from different angles.
It's a good reminder that sometimes the most effective solutions aren't the most obvious ones, and that sometimes, even in the face of overwhelming odds, there's always a chance to fight back, to find a way to survive.
Well said. So I think our apocalyptic probe today has been quite successful. We've explored two very different end-of-the-world scenarios and learned some valuable lessons along the way.
Absolutely. We hope this episode has sparked your imagination and maybe even given you some food for thought. Join us next time on the Just Nuke It podcast for more thrilling tales from the edge of oblivion.
And remember, the apocalypse might be closer than you think, so stay vigilant, stay informed, and always have a plan.
And don't forget to rate and follow the show for more captivating stories. Until next time, this has been the Just Nuke It podcast.
Stay safe out there.